Welcome everybody to another episode of Custom Body Fitness here with Sandro. Today we have a special episode with Nick Peterson. So he is a physical therapist, the owner of Newcastle Physical Therapist. And I contacted him because I want to know about pain. I want to find out about how we can avoid pain and how we can alleviate pain. And we're talking about chronic pains or some kind of acute pain that is bothering you when you exercise. We're gonna figure out how pain works and what's a good pain and a bad pain. I think he is a qualified professional to talk about this because he has helped many people alleviate their pains. So you can go to his website. It's gonna be here in the show notes. You're gonna find the link so you can see the reviews and you can see his background and his license on physical therapist. So let's listen to his interview and let's find out how we can avoid chronic and acute pain and how we can alleviate those as well. At CBF, we know that for you to change your body, you need to change your mind. Exercise and eating healthy is only part of the plan. We care about our members as we care about our family because our members become our family. It is not about competition but support. It is not about being the strongest or the fastest but about you defeating your negative self. It is about working together and making the task challenging and have fun. By the end, what matters is not how hard the session was, but that you take control of your mind so you can take control of your body. My name is Sandro and I'm happy you are part of our family. Welcome to Custom Body Fitness. Everybody, welcome to another video of Custom Body Fitness. We have Nick with us today. He's a physical therapist in Newcastle Physical Therapy, correct?
Yep.
Actually, you're the owner, part of the owner of the place.
My wife Sarah and I are both owners.
Okay, tell me how you started your physical therapy business.
So my wife and I, Sarah, were both travel physical therapists for the past few years. And when COVID hit, that actually ended the travel physical therapy business for at least several months. It still didn't, kind of fully recover. So we really kind of just had to look at our options. Once that happened, we kind of just kind of hunkered down for a couple months and decided what we were going to do. But when we saw that it wasn't recovering, we decided, rather than just sit on unemployment for the next year, we're going to be proactive, and we decided to create our own business. So we've been through this area in the past, like the Roaring Fork Valley, Newcastle. Really loved it, and so we came back last June and kind of made a final decision, and we decided to go for it. So yeah, we started up inside the Defiance West Gym in Newcastle, and since August of last year we've been up and running.
Okay, so tell me, what made you start a physical therapy business? What got you into that kind of career?
Oh, so I chose, actually when I was a kid, my mom's a physical therapist and still is. And, if I was sick or something and had to go with her to work, I would see her in the hospital, bringing people in with like severe burns and stuff, and they're getting in like the hot tub whirlpool and just in tons of pain. And I thought, man, I don't want to be a physical therapist. That seems really tough to, just work with people with burns and that kind of thing. And that's kind of how I thought of it, which is physical therapists don't really even do that anymore. And so I really was on honestly, a pre-med track until late into college. In my junior year of college, I was in a pre-med class, which was actually a great class. I got to shadow a lot of local doctors and surgeons at Greenville Hospital in South Carolina. And I was really interested in a lot of the stuff they were doing, but one common theme that I kept seeing is that many of the doctors were very rushed with their patients. They had, maybe 8 to 10 minutes. They didn't really have time to, get to the root of the problem and solve it. So the answer was almost always medication. And I really didn't like that because, I'm a strong believer in the body's ability to heal itself, to provide, healing through health, fitness, natural means. So I started questioning my career choice and thinking, is this something I want to do? I was already pretty far along, but I started thinking, what other things could I do? And at the time, my mom suggested, what about, you checked out physical therapy? And I thought, let's give it a try. I know that the kind of physical therapy my mom was doing many, many years ago was way different than most what we call outpatient physical therapy, which is what I do now, where we're working with people at a much higher level with, orthopedic injuries, back, shoulder, knee, ankle. So I went to a local physical therapy clinic near my college and just started, hanging out with them, shadowing. And I was hooked right off the bat. I was like, man, this is really cool because I love exercise. I love to understand the body. I love to help people get better and solve problems. It's really problem solving that involves the body and, helping people to recover. And I think that combo for me, it was already a lot of the way lines down what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people in the medical field. And for me, I could just see myself doing it. I just went and I was like, yeah, this is something I could definitely see myself doing. And the rest is history.
You wanted to get people out of their pain.
Yeah.
So you remember a conversation with that client that I had yesterday. I have a knee injury, which I completely sprained off the bone, the anterior posterior cruciate, and the medial collateral. And I had 3 surgeries. The first 2 surgeries I had, they just were horrible. The doctor wasn't very good. The third one, he was amazing. He replaced the 3 ligaments, and my knee is like 99.9%. And I told my client how knowledgeable I became about how the knee works because of the injury. I started researching everything. And when the first surgeon when I was in consultation with the first surgeon, I wasn't happy with the explanation he gave me. And I told him, you probably need to replace my MCL. I think it's completely off the bone. He said it's going to heal. And I'm not disagreeing with the MCL. They do heal, but it was completely off the bone. So I told him, and he didn't, some doctors, they don't pay attention.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to fix it. And finally, my knee gave up after he just fixed the anterior cruciate. And now he tried to put in place my MCL, which didn't work. And that's when I got my third surgery with a different surgeon. He explained with details from the bottom exactly what I want to hear. So the reason why I'm telling this conversation is exactly what you said. Some doctors, they don't give the time. So I was talking to my client and I was explaining how the knee works, from the synovial fluid to the ligaments to the patella to the cartilage and the meniscus. I was explaining everything to my client and I told him how it works for flexion and flexion doesn't supposed to be twisting and blah blah blah. And she said, Sandro, you open up my mind. You just go to the doctor and they tell you, oh, it's okay. It's just swallowing. Just take these pills. Just go to the doctor. They don't take the time to explain those little details. So you actually not concerned about what's going on with your knee because you don't know how it works. Mm-hmm. That's what she was telling me. So you mentioned a very good point about some doctors not giving enough time to the clients, and I bet that's one of the things that you notice, and that's what you do with your clients, right? You're giving enough time for them to understand their pain.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of doctors really do want to help. Many of them are their hands are a bit tied though by the system they're in, and they just have lots and lots of appointments per day. And what that means is that they just don't have quite as much time to spend with each patient, and that can be really tough and stressful. And I think that brings the quality down. So for me, in physical therapy, that was a huge thing because physical therapy in general, but especially how we've set up our clinic, we have time to talk to our patients, to listen to them, to really get a detailed background, find out what their personal goals are, what their fears are, what their expectations are, and then to do a full body checkup and look at not just the knee, but look at their hip, look at their ankle, look at how is the body moving, like maybe why did this happen in the first place, and then how can we solve this in the long run? Or if we can't, what's the next best option? Should we have a consult with the surgeon, or what should we do? But the big goal is to understand first and to really take time to see, our client's body in depth, how it moves, any, shortcomings or weaknesses there may be that we can shore up and help to, correct or bring back to normal. And generally, most things for the body, I think of exercise almost like medication in a way too. Most medical doctors are going to give medication, and there's going to be, like this right dose. If it's way too low or way too high, it can be bad. And the same thing with exercise. Like physical therapy is huge part, giving the right dose and the right amount of exercise for each person to help their body recover. And it really works with your body's natural ability to recover on its own, which I think is really cool.
So let's talk a little bit about imbalance. I give you my background on that because of my knee injury, and actually we were talking about the same thing with one of our members. That because when I had my second surgery, my knee was still loose, and without me, because I'm pretty good with pain, I sometimes it amazes me how good I am with pain. And I remember that my right side won't get very tight because of the balance. And the reason why I'm telling you this story, because I want you to explain for people that don't know about imbalances that you mentioned when you were explaining about how the body works, that you not only look at the knee, it could be from the hip or something else, because sometimes, like you said, the pain is not from the knee, right? It comes from other places. So I want you to just add more to that. So one day I noticed that I just started limping. And I just was walking, I was limping, and I told myself, you never limp, Sandro, why are you limping? And then I talked to myself, I said, because you're in a lot of pain, have you noticed? And then I said, oh yeah, my right side is super tight. And then I concluded that the reason why it was getting very tight is because it was compensating because of my left knee. Unconsciously, your body is trying to compensate for those little injuries that you have in the other side, and it makes the other part of the body in a lot more pain because it's compensating. I can imagine people that are using only one leg. Anyway, so my client was saying that her mom had a hip replacement, and the hip replacement, after the hip replacement, she started getting knee pain. And the only thing that could come to my mind is if that hip replacement wasn't well done, or if it wasn't rehab the way it's supposed to, or if it's not the right size or whatever, I bet there is compensation in there, right? Mm-hmm. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That is 100% true. So we have to look at not only, what's happening above and below the joint. So if we're talking about the knee, we have to look at the ankle and at the hip, but also, the other side. So, a lot of people, they don't fully rehab the surgery side. So if I have surgery on my right hip, and then what happens, because this hip hurts and I, don't use it as much, I get up mostly with my good side, then my thigh muscles get weak too, my quad and my hamstring. And then once I start getting weakness in my thighs, and I have weakness in my hip, I'm more likely to start having problems in my knee, because the knee is probably not functioning the way it should. It doesn't have a good muscle balance around it. Our muscles really are crucial for supporting the joint. So if I have weak muscles in my joint and I'm putting, the demands of daily life, I'm going to be more likely to have problems in that joint if I don't have sufficient strength. And to give an example, like if someone comes in for, let's say, left knee pain, and they have really tight ankles, and maybe they do CrossFit. This is a super common example. So when they squat, and when we squat, our knees have to come forward a little bit so that we stay balanced. But if the ankle doesn't bend, they start to kind of fall back, and they bend way forward with their shoulders to try to stay balanced. And if you squat like that, way bent forward over and over, it can put extra pressure on your back, and then you can start having a back problem. And so we have to ask, what's causing the problem to begin with? All these things kind of play together. And same thing, if I have hip pain, I might not be able to squat well because it pinches every time I start to squat. So what do? I start shifting weight onto my right side and getting bad patterns. And many people, they get in that pattern and it becomes a pattern. They do that for years without even thinking, but they just start shifting to one side, starts making things, Asymmetrical, putting uneven load on the one side versus the other, and a lot of times you get a strong side and a weak side. Things are not moving the way they are. There's so many examples, but that's just like a couple.
Like a car, right? Have you been advised with your mechanic if you have a all-wheel drive to use the same tires instead of putting one different tread in another one?
Yeah.
Because it's putting more pressure in one tire, and therefore the transmission or the differential goes back because you're putting a lot more pressure in one side instead of being equally. The same with your body. So tell me, let's talk a little bit about more common issues that I hear people have problems with, which is the knees, the lower back, and the shoulders. What usually triggers those pains?
That is definitely the top three. That is the top three I see by far. And there's a variety of things that can cause it. I just mentioned like how I think the car analogy is super great because if you have a car and it has, all the parts are working great, the transmission, the tires, but then you have a leak of your engine oil and that's leaking out. Like that one small problem is going to affect the whole function of the car, obviously. And so same thing with your body. If you're compensating in other areas, that can obviously affect it like we talked about. However, I would say a big thing for a lot of the patients I see is really training errors. So even if let's say you don't have any crazy imbalances in any of your areas of body, your strength is generally pretty good. I see a lot of active people where that's the case, but a lot of the injuries are due to either doing too much or doing too little in an area. Let's say, let's say CrossFit, because I see a fair bit of CrossFit injuries. A lot of people I'd say some of the difference I see between the people who get injured and those who don't. I think CrossFit has this kind of reputation for, developing a lot of injuries, which is true in some cases and not in others. The people who are doing it without getting hurt, they're going in an intensity that's appropriate for their body, and they've learned to listen to their body and not go 110% every time. Many of the people who get hurt, they kind of develop habits of ignoring, or pushing through pain. So pain is kind of an interesting thing, Pain doesn't always mean we have a severe injury, but it is something that we should pay attention to. So say every time you press a weight overhead, you have pain in your shoulder. You say, you know what, like I'm just going to push through it. Like, I'm strong. I'm stronger than the pain. But over time, you have it every time you lift. The pain gradually worsens over time. And if you ignore that for long enough and just continually push too hard and don't give your body time to rest, that small pain can turn into, a rotator cuff tear or something really bad. The people who are smart and I think listen to that, and they work around it. Say, instead of doing an overhead press, maybe I'll just do a horizontal press, like a push-up or something if that doesn't hurt. Maybe I'll bring down the weight. I'll lighten the reps if I start to feel it. I think many small things like that add up really big over the long run for people who are already active. I'd say on the other end, the other common thing I see is not an overload of the body. Well, it is still kind of an overload. It's an overload of someone who's not active. So if you don't exercise, then the everyday activities that you tend to do can become an overload for your body. So generally, I think of it like this, exercise, strengthening, and cardio increases our body's resilience and its capacity to do things. So let's say, you have a heavy potted plant in your backyard and you've got to move that thing inside because it's getting too cold. And that pot plant weighs like 80, 100 pounds. If you don't exercise, there's a good chance that's going to be too much and it'll overload your back and you'll get a bad back injury just lifting over and getting it. However, if you exercise and you can deadlift 250 pounds, the 80-pound pot is probably not going to have any effect on your back. It's going to be easy. Your back has become strong and resilient because of the regular demands you place on it. So I'd say the other category of injury I see is people who don't do much and their body becomes overloaded by everyday tasks that we just run into.
Okay, let's be a little bit more specific about the knee. What are some things that cause knee pain?
So for the knee, I would say the top things I usually see are either traumatic injuries or overuse.
Let's talk about both.
We're going to talk about both? So let's go to traumatic first. So if you play sports, a lot of the injuries happen with either landings or with contact. So a lot of the injuries are non-contact, especially in female athletes. So say you're a soccer player and you're jumping up to like hit the ball and you come back down, and then your knee kind of bows in and you strain or tear a ligament. That's pretty common. Or even just running fast and slowing down real fast. Strength is a big factor in that. If your muscles are more strong, they're more able to handle those quick loads and just absorb energy rather than have that overload your knee and cause, ligament sprain or strain or something else. And then overuse, I usually see in more things like, if you're a long distance runner and you're really pushing up your miles, like trying to hit that race, but you're starting to feel your knee ache, you push through that and it starts becoming more, and that can lead to an injury gradually over time. Or it could be that, you're not very active, but you decide to go for, say, like a long hike. You've been kind of inactive most of the winter, but the weather's got nice. You decide to go for a longer hike, and then like on the hike, it's just way too much, and it overloads your knee, and then your knee hurts. So I would say those are two main categories. Most people, it's either like some kind of accident or some kind of, overuse where you've done more than your body can handle. In both cases, your body's readiness, let's say your strength, and sometimes your mobility, but usually your strength and preparedness for it is probably the biggest factor.
Okay, so I think that answers one of the questions. I'm going to ask you another question about that. So for that, to avoid those injuries, you need to strengthen your muscles.
Absolutely.
Right? So what can they do after let's say they overuse the knee. Mm-hmm. What can they do to alleviate that pain?
It's a great question. Most people's response is one of two things. They either rest 100% and just quit using it, or they just ignore the pain and push through it. So both are not the ideal response. Sometimes resting is the key. So if you just get an injury, it is worth taking off for a few days. But if you've gone a few days and it's not getting any better, then I've seen people wait weeks or months and then they just get to where they just stop exercising because, nothing really changes. The other case is doing too much, obviously ignoring the pain and pushing through. So we already talked about that a little bit. That usually doesn't work out well if you ignore pain for a long time. It's good to pay attention to it. The answer is usually somewhere right in the middle. When an injury happens, we definitely want to back down the intensity, how hard we go, and the volume, how much, total exercise we're doing. Quite a bit. It needs to scale down, but we want to keep our body moving. So our body heals through movement. Movement is, I really consider movement as like medicine for our body. Our knee, if we we injure our knee, it gets swollen, it hurts, and we just stop walking and sit on the couch all day long. The body really needs input to get that knee healing. So getting light movement throughout the day, gentle exercises, that's going to lead to healing a lot faster than sitting on the couch or pushing through. So that's really what we do in physical therapy. When someone comes in with an injury, we see where is your body's function right now, what things can you do without pain, and what things hurt, and then from that we try to build a well-rounded program to take care of the injury at hand, but also, again, we look at what probably caused that. Are there other imbalances above or below that we also need to work on at the same time? But the goal is to give someone a plan to where they can continue moving while injured daily, doing things that will start recovering that mobility, recovering that strength, letting their body move without pain.
Okay, good. Let's talk about now the lower back.
Lower back.
What causes that pain, and what can they do to avoid, to actually not get into that pain and to alleviate the pain if they get it?
Yeah, great question. Lower back is probably the top one. And this is another case that's usually an overload to the tissues of the back. So with people who are active, I often see them hurting their back, lifting more weight than they can do with good form. So often squatting or deadlifting. And those are absolutely great exercises and I love them. But I would say the most common injuries I see are from people doing way more than their body can handle and not really listening to their body, just going for how much can I lift right now versus seeing it as an exercise to like build my body up. That's a big category. Another big category is, many times people are inactive, lifting something heavy. That tends to injure the back and maybe start a kind of like a pain cycle, gets it started. Maybe sprain a ligament, maybe injure a disc. And to be honest,
so if I sprain a ligament, injure a disc, would that heal?
It does, at least to a degree. Sometimes it doesn't heal 100%, but they have had studies looking at a lot of people with disc bulges and things like that. Some of them don't heal, but many of them do heal, at least partially over time. And the interesting thing is, even a lot of them that don't heal, many people recover their function and get out of pain even if it doesn't heal. That probably seems crazy because, I think this comes down to, we used to see the body, they call it a biomechanical approach. We look at the body as all parts, like a car, but this is the area where human beings are more complicated than that. Our bodies are more adaptable than the car. It's a living organism, and there's many people going around who have, maybe they have a small rotator cuff tear in their shoulder, maybe they have some arthritis in their back or a bulged disc, but they get through that, their body heals. While that injury is still there, they get to where they can still function at a high level without pain. Well, so this is a big conversation with a lot of people. So, some people will start off by getting an MRI, and they'll say, well, it shows this, this, and this in my back. I'm screwed basically, right? I'm going to have to get surgery. And my answer is usually like, I wouldn't go so fast, Surgery is a big deal. You're going to be out for several weeks to months minimum. It's thousands of dollars just for the first step. An MRI is usually, I think the average cost is $2,000 in the hospital or $1,000 outside of it. For that price, you could do physical therapy for many weeks.
And you don't know if it's going to be effective.
Right.
You need to really study that. When I got into my knee injury, I really studied what they're going to do to my knee, what happened. This is what I wanted to tell you. Based on what I know and the research that I have done, and with clients online, things like that, I noticed that people who have done their knees, who have done a completely knee replacement, some of them are happy with it. Mm-hmm. The highest percentage are happy with it. Mm-hmm. Lower percentage are not. They're not the same. People who have done their hip replacement, usually a couple of them that I have to talk to them. I haven't talked to many of them because I don't know many people who have done hip replacement, but the people who I have talked to them, they're very happy with the hip replacement, except for my mom's client that I was talking about. Most people, they're super happy with it. With the back injury, I haven't heard anybody who said, I'm happy with my surgery. They always have other discs, they need another surgery, and the pain never goes away. It's still there. And I think it's because of stiffness. That's only my belief. I haven't made a research on that at all. But the people who I have talked to about back surgeries, all the people that I have talked to, they're never happy with the surgery. And years after. So
I agree 100%. I've definitely seen people who've had back surgeries who are really happy with it. Those are usually the smaller back surgeries that are arthroscope, where they go in with like a little tube thing where you have barely any incision, and they just trim away a little bit of disc or something to free up a nerve from being pinched. People who have more severe back surgeries, like a fusion or something, where they're putting hardware in the back and fusing multiple areas together, major things like that. The outcomes for those surgeries are usually not as good. Now, most people do get relief, but pain-free that's a lofty goal, and often doesn't happen, unfortunately. Most people I see with knee and hip replacements, they do, like you said, usually do really well. It is painful at first, a little more for the knee than the hip replacement usually, but most people are happy with it once they go through the rehab process, put in the work. And why that is, it's hard to say. The back is a lot more complicated, though. That's why you have to see a neurosurgeon or orthopedic spine specialist.
But when we're talking about surgery, for example, and I'm going to tell you my story. We're talking about chronic injuries, for example, arthritis in the knee. Because, for example, my injury was devastating. It's 3 ligaments, and most people just sprain one, and the only thing they had to do is replace this ligament. So when we're talking about that, I think it's different than the lower back, because the lower back many times is nothing else than a bulky disc, what they call a herniated disc, and like you said, most likely it will heal. I want to tell you 2 stories. One is mine. The other one is a person, I don't quite remember his name. He's a Navy recruiter, and I want your feedback on it. I've been exercising for 20 years. I got all type of injuries and pain. That tennis elbow, I honestly never got to the doctor, because I should say never got to the doctor. But for those pains, I know my body so well that I push it through. Which I'm not saying that I'm doing the right thing, but I'm saying my body, I know my body well. I got what they call the tennis elbow when it hurts a lot, and it's 6 months, 7 months with that pain. Lower back pain when I'm squatting, and all of a sudden I get that shooting pain and my muscles become very tight. I can be lying down in bed, I can be sitting, I can be walking. I mean, and that lasts, depending if I stretch, if I massage it. I never stop exercising, by the way. From 2 weeks, it lasts me to 2 months with that pain. Obviously, every time is less intense than the beginning. For example, last 3 weeks ago, I went tubing, and the river is so strong, so strong right now that the current pushed me. I was swimming. I fall out of the tube. I was swimming to the edge, and I didn't notice there was a lot of rocks, and I hit my legs. And after that, when I got up into the rock, on top of the rocks, I couldn't walk perfectly because of the pain and the numbness of the water. When finally we got out of the water, we went eating. I don't want to waste your time telling the whole story. I couldn't bend my knee because my thigh was in so much pain because of the rock hitting it. That was on Sunday. On Monday night, I work on my legs. I lift 315 pounds with squatting. I do 50 repetitions, of course, in sets. I do jumping lunges with 90 pounds on each side. And I do deadlift with 315, Romanian deadlift with 315. And we're talking about the same repetitions and the exercises. So on Monday, my leg in the morning, I usually do my exercise. In the morning, it was in so much pain that I'm not a quitter. I decided not to quit, but I couldn't do it because it was so much pain. So I went home, I slept, and I feel relief. So I went to the gym the same morning, and I exercised it, I pushed it. And when I started doing the first lunge, with the squatting, it wasn't a lot of pain, but when I was starting doing the first lunges, it's like the first repetition wasn't a lot of pain, the second one, boom, pain gone. So I did my whole exercise. Anyway, that's an example. The same when I hurt my back, and it happened once, twice, happened many times. I probably hurt my back like 5, 6, 7 times. The same with my shoulder. Sometimes it comes to the point that I can't rotate my and with this in mind, like I told you before, I know I don't want to talk high level myself because the story that I'm going to tell you about this guy is impressive. I'm not. I'm amazingly good with pain. So I need to be when they did my surgery, I didn't took any pain medication because I can't handle that much pain. I mean, when they drill all your bones and all that, so many people can't handle like a little cut and they need pain relievers. I mean, I didn't took any medication for my surgeries. So you can imagine how much pain I can handle. And so sometimes the rotator cuffs get super tight. They hurt a lot. I continue pushing it. And sometimes it goes away in 2 weeks. Sometimes it lasts like 4, 6 months. But I continue doing it, and all of a sudden it disappears. Every single knee pain. What I noticed with knee pain, more than anything, my personal research and my personal body, of course, is that it's a lot of tightness. When I get a lot of knee pain, it's because I have a lot of tightness. As soon as I start stretching, it goes away. The same with my back and most likely my shoulders. If I don't stretch, it's like I get those acute injuries more common. Anyway, I've been doing that for years, and it seems like I work through that. Makes sense? And I haven't had like a chronic injury to the point that I say like. But that's not for everybody, right? That's not the type of everybody can handle that much pain, and that's when I noticed that some people need that relief. What do you think about that?
That's a lot of interesting food for thought. Yeah. So I have a couple of chronic injuries myself, and I think, there's times when you can work through pain and there's times when you can't. For some people, they can work through it at a higher level and still have their body heal from it, whereas others don't. And it's hard to figure that out for yourself. If you've had long-term injuries, it takes some time to determine, like when can I push and when can I not. Most people who've had injuries for a long time and have, learned to be in tune with their body can learn when they can tolerate to push and when not. The general advice I give to most of my patients, and I follow this from my own injuries, is if it hurts a little bit, but it doesn't get worse, you can continue working and it doesn't get worse or it gets better as you get warmed up, then I go for it. I keep doing it. If you start though, and it's like, hey, my shoulder hurts, and then every rep you do, it's hurting more and more and more, that's usually not going to end up good. You're probably going to have a flare-up of your pain, and that's not to say that, it's going to necessarily cause a really bad injury. You can still, in most cases, recover after that, but you're probably going to have a more delay in function afterwards versus if you scale it back. My preference is to scale to the point where I don't have pain, and maybe I'm doing a little bit of less weight, but then after the workout, I recover really well, and I can continue exercising and not, miss any of my workouts.
So what you recommend is for them to continue exercise, but if I'm not misunderstanding, pay attention to the pain and work out according to it. Yeah. Don't stop.
Yeah, absolutely don't stop. A minor pain that just kind of stays at a minor level throughout the exercise, and then it goes away after. I tell people don't worry about it. That's normal recovering from an injury. If you have that, don't worry. If it's really bad and it keeps increasing though, and then you finish your workout and your shoulder or your knee, it hurts worse the whole rest of the day. You wake up the next day, it's still a lot worse. That's a case where you probably pushed too hard, and if you had scaled back, you would have healed a lot quicker. It would have gone from the exercise becoming an aggravator that sets you back from healing to the exercise becoming positive stimulus and it aids your body in recovery. And, you can still get away with making mistakes. Most people make mistakes. That's part of life. I make mistakes with my training sometimes. But I will say the less mistakes you make as far as going too hard or too much while you're injured, usually the quicker it's going to recover. The biggest thing is to stay active. Get in there for your workout every time. Don't miss it. But scale it. Listen to what your body's telling you. I think the biggest place I've gone wrong with my personal injuries and most of my patients is saying, you know what, this is my workout today. I'm going to run 5 miles at this pace. Like if it hurts, whatever. Like I'm just going to push through and make it happen no matter what. Or I'm going to lift, today on bench press, I'm doing this much weight for this many reps. If my shoulder has sharp pain, like I'm just going to push through it. That kind of mentality will usually set you back. But if you listen and say, you know what, like I'm going to take 10 pounds off the bar, try it again. You know what, now it doesn't hurt much at all. And then go with that. And your body will respond to that really well, and it will go forward rather than backward. It's tricky.
So I have a couple questions more for you. But before that, I'm going to tell you the story of this guy. Because this guy amazed me. And I think he's been interviewed by a lot of people. And you can search online, because I don't know his name. I'm pretty bad when it comes with this type of celebrities. I'm pretty bad remembering names. But if you search online for Navy recruiter run 100 miles, you know who I'm talking about. This guy talks his story, and the way why a lot of people start interviewing him is because a very successful business owner talked about he was doing the same race, and he talks about him, and he saw him, And that's when everybody started looking for him so they could be interviewed. Anyway, so he was overweight. And he tells the whole story. Don't want to tell you this. I recommend you go online and search him and listen to the story. But he was a very unsuccessful kid, and he had a lot of negative talking. He was overweight. He was mistreated. Blah blah blah. So he was overweight, and he decided to sign up for one of the toughest races here in the U.S. And that race is supposed to be 100 miles run. He said he only got some crackers with him and a chair. And don't ask me how he took the chair. If somebody's supposed to bring it to him, or he was running with it. I don't know that part. But he was running, and he ran 70 miles.
Wow.
When he ended up in the state, he couldn't do it anymore. He said that his kidneys was failing, and he was peeing blood. He wanted, like he said, the potty pour. It was a couple feet away from him. He couldn't get up. He got the chair. He said he couldn't get up to go there, and he was almost. He was peeing blood in himself. He said his feet. Some part of his feet, I'm guessing tibia, and some of his toe was broken. He couldn't get up. But he was talking to himself. He said, I'm not going to quit. So he got his cracker. He started eating the crackers, like sitting in the chair. And the same story tells the other guy who saw him. He tells the same story. He said, he was just eating his crackers. The wife came over and said, like, you're done. And he said, no, I'm not done. I'm going to do this. And he got up the chair, and he tells how he put it in his mind. He did it by incremental things. He get up the chair, and the wife holds him, and they start walking. I think they walked 2 miles, if I remember the story. And the wife told him, because he's supposed to make it in certain time. He said, you're not going to make it at this pace. Say he got some of that healing tape, whatever you call that, compression tape. He taped his feet, and he started running with his broken bones. He ran 30 miles, he finished the race. And after that, every day, because after that, he recruited into the Navy, and he needed to do the training, and he continued doing it injured. And right now, he's in super shape, and he's being hired to teach people how to get out of the comfort zone and make people succeed to another level. Because one of the things that he said, he noticed that when he gets up and he noticed when he was running the last 30 miles, he said, I noticed that you stop being human. You're more capable of doing what you think you're limited to. That's an impressive story. I thought that guy was amazing. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you that story. I think it goes with a lot of the pain and things that we talk about. Tell me about what do you do to exercise, and tell me a little bit about you eating.
Personally, what do I do to exercise? So I do a combination. I change what I do from year to year. I like variety, so I've just done workouts on my own in the past, all body weight, like calisthenic. I've done CrossFit. I've done more like standard, gym strength training workouts. I usually strength train 2-3 times a week. And then I mountain bike, I run sometimes. I am dialing back right now, and this kind of relates to that story. I admire it in some ways, but for me, I don't admire it in other ways, because I am something called overtrained right now, which is basically the result of if you push your body to 100%, 110%, all the time for many years, you can finally reach a state of kind of like burnout or exhaustion where you can't recover from training well. So I think for me, winning for me has changed. I used to push very hard and be like the person in your story and just see how much I could like pull out of my body. I would do long distance. I would push my body to the limits, and I got away with it for a long time. But eventually I started getting more injuries, and I started getting more, I couldn't recover as well, and started having sleep issues and these other kind of things. So I think everyone's body has a limit, And it's fun to push the limits, and I enjoy pushing limits, but eventually it can go too far in some cases too. And where that limit is, genetics are big. I'll say that. What some of my patients get away with crushes other ones for years. And I think it's big just understanding your body and what it's capable of. And it's really fun to like find out what your limits are. But I think if you kind of ignore things your body are telling you to for many years, sometimes it can get you in trouble. So I scale back a little bit more now. My goal is to be able to push more again because I enjoy it. But yeah, for now I'm scaling back more. I'm not really going 100% on weightlifting or running or biking. I do it more for enjoyment and kind of maintain my fitness. But I'm kind of focusing more on rest and recovery right now, at least at this stage of life.
So you do weightlifting, you go hike, you go biking, and you running.
Yep.
Right. That's what you do for exercise, most likely.
Pretty much.
And of course, give you your recovery time.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, what about eating food?
I'd say I eat pretty healthy. I'm not Nazi healthy. Like I eat dessert here and there and stuff, but I'd say I eat a pretty well-rounded diet. I try to have a good bit of fruits or vegetables like at every meal. I try to eat a lot of healthy meats. Try to emphasize, fish like salmon and things like that. We know that have omega-3s and are really good for us. And I listen to a lot of health and wellness podcasts too. And there's a lot of research coming out on fasting and intermittent fasting, how good that is for us. I'm not doing that a lot right now. I have in the past, but I still try to leave. Personally, I try to leave like 12, 13 hours where I don't eat between breakfast and dinner. And even that research has shown has a lot of beneficial effects for our bodies.
Okay, so you do intermittent fasting.
I'm going to say a mini. I don't know if I call that. And I have in the past. Right now, we make sure there's more time. I don't snack at night like I used to. I just kind of leave. At dinner, I'm done, and then I don't eat breakfast until a little bit later.
Okay, well,
before I go to work.
What food would you recommend people to recover fasting?
That's a great question. So, if you're recovering from an injury, there are several really key things. So, one is getting enough protein intake. So, obviously, if you're injured, your body needs protein not only to help recover, but also you want to start building back those muscles that atrophy or weaken with injury. So getting enough protein is a really big deal, and there's been a lot of discussion over the years, how much protein do I need? Well, usually the top amount that you won't get much more benefit past, they've shown that to be around 1 gram per pound of body weight, and that's a lot. And there's kind of two goals. So you want to get, not only do I want to get towards that amount total, but I also want to have that spread out throughout the day, because it's tough for the body to handle a humongous amount of protein all at once. So, kind of a typical American breakfast, I have frosted flakes for breakfast, maybe like a peanut butter and jelly for lunch, and then like a humongous dinner, that's really big, and then like a protein shake, maybe if I'm working out. The body does a lot better if you spread that protein out. If you get a balanced amount of protein, at breakfast, lunch, at dinner, and then, possibly even another time.
I've read that research. I can't quite remember how much protein, but the body's limited to just absorb so much. Can't absorb more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. So tell me, what do you do to recover, and what do you do to elevate you personally?
Personally, I think, you'll see all these recovery tools and methods and special smoothies and things out there. Like, honestly, I go with this with my patients, like, the most effective recovery things are the most boring but underrated. Sleep is probably our biggest superpower. I recently read a book called Why We Sleep by a guy named Dr. Matthew Walker, and the info in that book is so great. It's a bit long, but it's really good information. Sleep is your body's biggest recovery tactic. When you go to bed, so many things are happening at night while you're asleep. Your body is repairing your muscles, getting your nervous system recharged. It is so effective at recovery. He cites some research in there, even for like your risk of getting injured, like, high school athletes who sleep 6 to 7 hours versus like 8 to 9, they get injured way more often. And part of it's because your body recovers better. Part of it is other factors like mental sharpness that make you better at what you do and less likely to make mistakes. So sleep is huge.
So you sleep a lot?
I do. I focus on trying to get like 8.5 hours in bed a night right now. So I make it a priority. And another big thing is you've got to give your body good nutrition and enough. I definitely see probably more female, like endurance athletes that are chronically pushing their bodies real hard, but they're trying to diet all the time at the same time. And that can be really tough. And, you know, it's like a body image thing. But that can be another stressor to your body is if you're pushing it very hard, but then not giving it the nutrition it needs to repair itself. So I think nutrition is really big. And, you know, a third big one that a lot of people underestimate is stress management. I'll say most of my patients who you can do all the right things, like if you do all the right exercises and you eat very well, but you sleep, you know, 5-6 hours a night and you're highly stressed all the time, that puts your body in a constant, what we call fight or flight mode. You know, it's the fancy name for it is the sympathetic part of our nervous system. It keeps us, it's kind of like our, you know, back in the day, humans had to be ready, you know, if predators are attacking us or something, it gets our blood pumping, it gets us ready to fight or run. You know, that system ramps up when we exercise too, but it needs to come back down for recovery. And constant stress and low amounts of sleep will keep our body in that state, aroused and on edge all the time. And in that state, our body doesn't recover well.
So 3 things. Know how to deal with the stress, sleep, and eat nutrition.
That'd be top for me. Yeah. You can foam roll all day,
Yes.
but compared to sleeping an extra hour of sleep or those other things, like you can't touch it.
Okay. Now, what do you recommend your clients to do to recover from injury besides your services?
Well, I go over those 3 we just talked about. On my questionnaires when people come in, I ask about all 3 of those things because that's the top. For me, 4 main categories: exercise, sleep, nutrition, and stress management. That's kind of like, to me, the 4 big pillars of health. If you are really low on one, you can make up somewhat, you know, if the other 3 are good. But if you have, like, you know, exercise, you're doing perfect, but all other 3 bars are low, that's going to be, you're going to have a very tough time recovering. So I would say that's pretty much it. Like those 4, I keep it simple. I think that's if you get that recipe right, if you can maximize even like 3 out of 4 of those, like you're going to recover well. If you're highly stressed and sleeping 5 or 6 hours a night, it's going to be hard to make up for that with good nutrition and good exercise. You may be able to do it, but it's going to be a lot slower.
Perfect. Nick, thank you so much. It is a pleasure. Thank you for coming and talk to us and make us give us information about how we can deal with pain. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everybody, for continuing following. And I hope you got good information out of this interview. And now you know we have Nick right here. We can help both with pain and what to do to avoid injury and to alleviate pain. Thank you. So there you have the talk with Nick Peterson. As you see, he's very passionate about what he does. He gains a lot of pleasure from helping people alleviate their pain. You can tell by his expression. Of course, you can't see him in this talk and this podcast, but when I was interviewing him, I can see his expressions, and he really, like I said, gains a lot of pleasure by helping people alleviate their pain. So this is the summary of this video. This is what I got from the video. Exercise increases our body's resilience and its capacity to do things. So what that means is if you become strong, if you have the stamina, if you have the strength, if you have the resistance, you can do heavy tasks in life, and it's going to be difficult for you to get injured. So you want to be in shape to be able to do all your gardening, all your working stuff, anything that requires any physical effort. So get in shape, not to get injured. The other thing I got is if you get injured, if you want to alleviate, if you want to recover fast, you need to eat a good amount of protein, because you need that protein to fix those tissues that got injured, and also to make those muscles around that tissue stronger. The other thing I got that I hear it's super important, this is not the first time I hear this, is sleep. You need to sleep enough. That's the ability of your body to recover. That's when your body is recovering. That's when your body is healing. That's when your body is resetting. That's when your body is taking the time to heal. So make sure you sleep at least 7 hours. If your body needs more sleep, go right ahead and do it. The other point that I got from this is if you're stressed and you don't sleep enough, your ability to recover it's gonna be lower. You can also get injured faster because of your awareness and because your body is actually not ready to take the physical task. So make sure you have a way to manage, a system in place to manage stress. And the last point I got is to stay healthy and without injury, you have to follow Nick Peterson pillars of health, which is exercise, sleep, eat healthy, and manage stress. So with that said, I hope it's very clear for you. You put these points into practice and continue with your weight loss and your fitness training and a great life. Please be safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next time.